when I started to take ownership of my own faith and grow personally in my faith with Christ, that's when I started to see more of where my identity is found, which is in Christ, as opposed to what other people say or think. And so for me, that's a huge part of how I guess became more of just who I am today.
What's up and welcome to today's episode of Boost Podcast. We are so excited you decided to be here. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below. Follow us on all streaming platforms.
All of them.
Because we are there.
It's episode 2, boys.
You know what that means?
Yes.
Amen.
Red Bulls.
Sound that never gets old.
So, as all of you know, the new Lion King movie is out.
Dude, I need to see it. My wife is seeing it literally right now.
Yeah, and
She's
Kurt's
at the
sister
theater.
seeing it right now. Apparently, it's a pretty big deal.
Huge.
Rotten Tomatoes, you decide to trust that. It's got an 89% audience score.
That's higher than I thought it would be.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah,
I've
me
seen
too.
so many mixed reviews. We'll talk about it later. But
I feel like
so many reviews that are just so
I feel like
mixed.
it'd be higher. I feel like it's like a huge deal. And like,
Well, I think I saw that it's the 10th biggest box office of all time first weekend.
Seriously.
10th, yeah.
Wow.
That's pretty big.
That is.
critics are saying that basically, although it's like really good, it doesn't measure up to the original like 1994 version. This is an exact quote from a critic. It says, "The Lion King lacks the energy and heart that made the original so beloved, though for some fans that may just be enough."
Like a no-brainer, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, you hate to hear that it lacks
They are
heart.
remaking a lot of movies all at the same time. It's almost like if they should have just like waited like one a year rather than
It's
many going
It's
on
like
right
my
now.
childhood's replaying itself.
Yeah. What
Toy
about
Story, Lion King. It's
Did you
like,
guys
wait a
see
minute, what's going
Aladdin?
on? Yeah,
The
I've
new
seen
one?
Aladdin.
I
Yeah.
loved the new Aladdin.
Yeah, it's
I thought
good.
it was
It
incredible.
confused me because I
That's
didn't know it
good.
was a like a musical.
Did you see the original Aladdin?
Yeah. I
It's
guess
the exact same.
It's the same.
It's the exact same as
maybe
original.
I just don't remember. I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't remember either, but then I like started remembering the songs, and I remember sitting in the row like with all the people we went with, and a whole new world came on, and I lost it. I
So
was
you started
sitting.
singing, or you just
I
started
started
crying?
singing, 100%. Started singing, and I remember my wife sitting next to me. Our life group is sitting all the way down the row, and they just look over at me like this. I have my hand over my mouth, singing the Jasmine lines, of course,
Naturally.
and it was incredible. So
Well, today we have got an incredible episode. Like Jarrett said, it is his podcast number 2, and we are going to be talking about being yourself. And we have none other than hometown hero. He runs a marathon before breakfast every single
No
morning.
way.
He moves not only like Jagger, but better than Jagger. He
True.
lives 3 doors down the hall. My roommate, Kaleb Fischer. Yeah.
you look
Caleb, we're
so good.
Yes, we're so
Oh,
glad
thank
you're
you.
here.
Good.
That fashion, man.
Gosh,
Wow.
how can I be you?
You can't.
I guess I just got to start running marathons every morning.
No.
No, he'll tell us
Don't.
how to be you.
Okay.
That's a
gonna
little
tell you exactly.
exaggeration. Like marathon, yeah, it's pushing it a little bit, but
No, but on a real note, Kaleb is a teacher that literally he might disagree, but every student loves.
Yeah.
He's a coach
a
currently.
little lofty.
He currently is a coach that has 2 consecutive state championship track titles under his belt, going for like
Five.
Five.
Keep it going.
5 consecutive.
He's got a
keep
heart
going.
like no other, and literally he's one of the most genuine people I know, and I literally can't think of a better person to talk about being yourselves, because truly there's no one like you, Kaleb.
Yes.
Fisher.
So flattering.
Yes.
Wow.
Well, thanks for being here, man.
Yeah.
So, you're my roommate. We spent a lot of time together.
I know we're talking about just being ourselves, but how do I be you? How can I do it?
Let's see. I think you gotta wear cool clothes.
Yes,
Okay,
100%.
I've got something.
Which I
I've
try.
got something. Earlier, Kaleb, I described you as the word sassy, and Caden loved that. It's true. Caden loved that.
Yeah, but Kay laughs at everything, so if you're just laughing, like,
He's
that's
like,
not really fair.
He does.
He's like, I love it that you use that word with Kaleb. Do you think you're
What?
sassy?
Well,
Talk about that.
What
for
do
a
you
little
mean?
bit.
Like, what do you mean in the sense sassy? Like what? Like what
You got a
reasons?
little- you got a
what
little
reasons do you give for
Kardashian
that?
in you.
Yeah, little Kardashian. You
Little
baby, come on now.
Kardashian.
Like Chloe or who? I gotta know. Like,
Chloe, for
okay,
sure.
Cool. Yeah,
Chloe for sure.
I just feel like whenever someone gives you a cliche response, you are not coming back with a cliche response to their response.
Oh, for sure.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? And you just like
Very
you've got
witty.
you've got the wit, you've got the dryness in your humor, and you've got just like you're just sharp as a tack with your comebacks, baby.
Thanks.
It's just like cut, but you don't cut too deep. You know what I'm saying? Just like just skin deep.
I hope not.
No, you don't.
I feel like sometimes like maybe can go a little bit far, but sometimes the filter is just off, man, and so it just kind of like
You're just real.
like
For
the
real.
thought comes in and like straight out the mouth. So I work on it a little bit, but I keep it fun.
Please
so.
stop working on that because I love it.
I hope you don't get sassy of me asking this.
No promises.
But something happened just a couple weeks ago that I know you're very passionate about.
Very traumatic.
I can't.
I
talk.
know-
I
I
know
know
what you're gonna ask, and I
exactly.
cannot
Yeah.
talk about this.
No, we have.
How do you feel about Russell Westbrook going to the Houston Rockets? I swear you're his biggest fan. I heard you even shed a tear, maybe. So how are you feeling now? It's a couple weeks after. Are you excited? Are you a Houston fan now? Are you still a Thunder fan? I want to hear more about that.
Man, I'll be honest. Like when I was sitting there at dinner with Caden, and you
I was
were actually there
yeah,
that night, right?
I was there.
I don't. Were you there right when the moment happened?
I literally
or-
got there, got a plate.
and it came
And
up
it
on my
happened,
phone. Yeah. So ESPN app comes up on my phone, and I've been a little nervous about it, like all because all the talks and everything, and it comes up that Russ is going to Houston, and man, I couldn't eat. I was distraught. Yeah. I know this sounds ridiculous, and I realize in my mind like this is a stupid thing to be upset over. However, I do love watching Russ play basketball, and I know there's a lot of people that say whatever about him, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Everyone, you can feel however you want about Russ, but I just love to watch him play basketball, regardless of if he's a baby or if he's selfish or whatever you want to say
Right.
about him. He is number one in my books, and I will always stand by Russ.
So
Get outta here.
your top player of all time.
Yes, all time.
Oh wow, that's a
Listen,
statement.
I'm not saying he is the best player of all
But
time.
in your eyes,
But I'm just
okay.
saying he is my favorite
Sure.
to watch. I don't know if you can really say all time because like there are a lot of good players that I haven't watched play, obviously because
Right.
they're retired or whatever.
But it's your favorite.
But like in the time I've been watching NBA, which really has been since the Thunder, and that's a big part of it.
right.
Russ is definitely all-time favorite.
So would you compare that feeling you got when you saw that come up on your phone as like if your girlfriend had texted
Oh,
you
man.
and said she was breaking up with you?
Probably worse.
You heard it here first.
Oh my
How do you-
god.
That has happened to me. I have been broken up over text, and it felt really bad. No.
How do you feel
and
about Kevin
I do
Durant?
feel a little ashamed that I did shed just a tiny tear.
Did you really though? Like 100%. You're not lying. You're not just doing that.
100%. My eyes teared up.
Oh my gosh.
Well, here's what happened. So that night, I had to go unlock. A kid was needing to work out at the high school, doing some like throwing or whatever. So
Yeah.
I went to go get the shot out for him. And I was driving by, and some of my like high school kids were sitting in the parking lot, some of the football boys, and so I drove in to talk to them because I knew I know they know, and they came over and they were just like, "Are you okay?" And I just teared up, and I was like, "What am I doing?" Like this is so. I realized for everyone listening that I realized it's stupid that I was like that upset about it.
But I love that
But-
because that is literally
just
you.
who I am. So
that is
it's-
you.
it's cool.
That's why I loved it.
So we'll
Yeah.
see. I mean, will I rock a Houston jersey? Absolutely, only with number 0.
Yeah.
But-
And you know how I feel. I think he looks better in a Houston jersey
Ugh, no.
than a Thunder jersey. You can't tell me.
No way.
You
Absolutely,
cannot
I
tell
do
me
not
that.
agree with that.
No way.
He looks way
He
better
looks
Thunder. Plus,
so good in that.
Here's
and
the
that's
hard
just
part for me.
Photoshop. So I can't imagine when he puts
Why
that
would
jersey
you
on.
say that?
Because it's
dude?
true.
Are you-
It is so true.
I'll be
I'm
honest
gonna
too.
show an image.
Are you
I'm
talking
gonna
about
show
like
an
his
image.
skin tone with the
It
matched
just
up
looks
with the
good
red?
on him. The black jersey, the red
I
jersey.
thought that alternate jersey we had, like the turquoise.
Not a big fan.
Yeah.
I was.
Either way,
Well,
one of the hardest parts for me as well is that we traded for Chris Paul. I'm not a
Right.
Chris Paul fan. So I was hoping we'd just like move on and get rid of him. But
And there is talks that we might be.
Here's where
getting
we're
rid of
at.
him, so
Sure hope
it is
Chris
what
Paul.
it is.
Sure hope.
It'll be good.
Chris
Sure
Paul, come on the show.
No, I
Let's
sure
talk
hope he's
about
not
it.
listening to us right now. We might get
I
blasted.
like Chris Paul.
We might get blasted on Twitter.
I hope
somebody
so.
has to.
I'm just kidding.
Fingers
well,
crossed, boys.
That's a glimpse into who you are, just
Yeah.
for those listening, avid Russell Westbrook fan.
No doubt.
So like I said earlier, we're going to be talking about being you, and what that looks like. And so I want to open today's conversation to Kaleb with a thought of what does it even mean? Before we get into anything farther, what does it even mean to you to be yourself?
Like me, just me specifically, or in general?
Let's go general for now. Let's
Okay.
go general.
Man, that's a good question. I think just being yourself is where you kind of come to a point where you kind of do not just like do you without thinking about other people, but you're less concerned with how others view you,
Yeah.
what they think about your actions, those types of things, and you're more concerned in just living your life the way that like you see fit, not the way the world or others are kind of guide you into, but in a sense, doing what makes you happy. And we'll talk, like, I'll get more to that
for sure.
later,
So, like,
but-
for you, like, what does that mean? Like,
Well, so I think a lot of people that know me kind of know I'm like unapologetically myself.
Yeah.
Maybe to a fault. I don't know.
No, not to a fault.
Especially you guys know, like, just from being around me, like, I am who I am.
Yeah.
There's not a lot like you can do to change that. And so I think for me, it's just I've come to that place in my life where I don't have to do anything to make anybody else happy. I'm happy with my decisions, and so I don't know. That's where I'm at.
it's definitely
Yeah.
like a confidence. It's
Absolutely.
yeah.
For the
it's-
most part. I mean,
it's-
listen, like, everybody struggles, right? And everybody has, like, it's not perfect all the time, but I would say for the most part, yeah, it's good.
Yeah. Well, like, I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty incredible because there's so many people. I mean, myself included, that deal with the just finding who you are and like owning it, and it's really hard to not worry about what other people think about you.
For sure.
Sure.
That's one of my, like, just to be honest, that's one of my biggest insecurities.
Yeah, I remember.
And so-
I remember asking you that question
Yeah.
just a couple months ago. I don't know why. I was just like on this like kick of asking people deep questions in the middle of nowhere, just hitting them
love
with
it.
it.
I love
I
that.
love it. And so we're sitting at a food court, I believe at Penn Square Mall, and I asked everyone at the table. Some people like kind of barely know, and I said, "What's your biggest insecurity?" And I remember Caden like saying like, "Well, honestly, like, what other people think about me."
Sure.
So it's kind of like. I think it is very, very, very hard, and you might have gone through a stage where you felt that way.
Oh, no doubt. And I think everybody does. And
Absolutely.
even people who are, like, I think, sure of who they are still kind of walk through some of those things at some point.
Right.
It's not like,
Absolutely.
I don't think you can completely ever get away from that.
So, like, why do you think it's even important to be yourself?
I think the biggest part, I know for me personally, when I quit worrying about, what other people think and how they perceive me and those types of things, is I just found joy, not just happiness, but like joy in life, and just helped me kind of move into a different stage of life from where, I was my time was spent less like worrying about what other people think and how they perceive me and all those things, and it just allowed me to enjoy being in the moment.
Yeah,
and
that's good.
And being in the stage of life that I'm in.
It's really good. Very good. I think also, like, when you talk about the joy, I think part of that comes from even knowing, like, who God says you are. Like, as we're
100%.
Christians here, we believe that, like, who God says we are, it almost brings more joy to your life and how you even be yourself. You stop worrying about what other people think about you. So I just wanted to ask, in what ways has God shown you who you are?
Well, I think I look back on stages of life that I've walked through, and definitely in those stages, especially like high school, I think everybody knows that like people struggle with that.
Yeah.
You want to fit in, you want to be perceived a certain way, I guess, and look a certain way. But I think for me, like when I got to college and even beyond, and just started getting involved in my own faith as opposed to just like
Right.
Wednesdays, Sundays, just being in church. But when I started to take ownership of my own faith and grow personally in my faith with Christ, that's when I started to see more of where my identity is found, which is in Christ, as opposed to what other people say or think. And so for me, that's a huge part of how I guess became more of just who I am today, is just trusting in Christ and reading what his word says about me and believing that, as opposed to what others may say.
And what are some of those things that like you have found that God has said you are, like as a person, and not even like the stereotypical like I'm a child of God, I'm this
Which is huge,
which is huge, and I think
Sure.
it helps a lot of people.
Yeah.
But like realistically, like in your own personal life, like how has we really like what are those things that God has shown you? Like who is Kaleb in God's eyes?
Well, I think growing up, I was pretty shy, timid. I came from like a homeschool background, so I grew up just small family. That's what I knew every single day. Not small family, but as far as school
No,
goes,
you have a
like-
huge family.
Sure.
Yeah.
But as far
How many
like,
brothers?
small school, so I have 4 siblings. So we
Okay.
were all at home together, right? But when you think about like a school aspect of it, especially in a town the size of Weatherford, it was small, right? And so I just like the social aspect of it was different. And so when I went into public school, it was a huge transition for me. And I think that, along with like my faith in God, is what took just a little while for me to find who I was, because I didn't know where I fit in. I didn't know what group to sit with at lunch and where I fit in sports wise and school wise and all those different things. And I think just walking through some of those things, obviously helped me like personality wise and those things. Yeah. And then that just paired up with my faith. When those things started to come together, then that's what really brought me to the person I am today, who's able, be a little more outgoing and all of those things. Yeah.
And so like in a world full of just like noise, there's people around you, there's so much going on. How do you stay focused? Like how can the listeners like stay focused on knowing who they actually are, like, and who God has called them to be? How do they stay focused on and keep that mindset of like, this is who I am, no matter what's going on over here, no matter what I've done in my past, no matter, what happened today at work or what happened today at school? How can they just continue to stay focused and like just eyes on the prize, like, this is who I am, and no one's stopping that?
Yeah, well, so I was at Falls Creek last week, and I was
explain.
Yeah, so Falls Creek, our church camp that we go to, well, not just us, but a lot of people, Oklahoma,
big
Texas.
Church camp.
Huge church camp, right?
Biggest in the world, I believe.
Yeah.
Maybe not the world, the country.
Yeah,
sure.
country.
So like 8 weeks of camp, we were there 1 week, probably 6,000 to 7,000 students that were there total just that 1 week. And so multiply that by 8, right?
And then you count all the other stuff they do.
Sure. So just countless lives that get to encounter Christ. And so, we go with our church. We take about 180 kids, high school and junior high students. And I was sitting there talking to one of my runners during quiet time, and she was kind of preparing to share her testimony. And I was just reading through scripture, and I came across a verse that just talked about like, there is nothing that can separate me from Christ.
Wow.
And so I think that was a huge thing, because I think through sin and other people's views of us and all those different things that can affect how we view ourselves, I know that was something I struggle with. Like when I sin, like, well, man, God doesn't love me as much, right? Or when people see things in me or point out things that maybe I didn't like about myself, well, how am I supposed to be like unapologetically myself when somebody's making fun of me because I'm short or whatever? Right. So I was just reading through this verse, and I was talking through with that, because she was kind of talking about some of that, like her identity, and she was sharing that as part of her testimony. And so I just read through that scripture and talked through that with her about, regardless of the things that I do, it doesn't really matter, because my identity is found in Christ, and there's nothing truly that I can do, good or bad, that will truly separate me from Christ and
so
stop
good.
God from loving me or chasing after me.
Yeah.
Which I think is the huge thing, like to know, like, I think when you can kind of grasp your mind around that God loves you no matter what, and he will continue to like chase after you and search after you, even if you mess up.
That's good.
Or even if you do good things, like high or low, God wants you and desires you.
And I heard kind of like, to go into that a little bit, I was listening to a different podcast. It was several weeks ago now, and they were talking about kind of the same thing, a little different topic, but I think it's really key. They brought up a whole concept of, they were talking about knowing God's voice versus
I listened to this podcast.
Other people's, all that sort of thing. And they were talking about like how to differentiate the voices. And this plays into because there's so many voices, like negative, positive, whatever it is. And you can say like, how do I know that maybe this is God's voice or this is another voice? And they said their answer to it was, when you're in a relationship with a friend, okay, you call your friend and they answer, their voice, okay? If someone were, like when you call someone and someone else picks up the phone, you immediately right off the bat, you're like, okay, this is not so-and-so. Yeah. It's the same way with God. You know God's voice because you've spent time with him.
Yeah. That's good.
Which is the important part. If you spend time with him. Right?
If you spend time with him. So being in God's word, knowing his nature, knowing his character can help you to define and to differentiate, to filter out what is maybe the world's voice versus his. And I think that's so important when we're looking at, focusing on who God says you are.
Absolutely.
And it's just spending time with him, just knowing his nature, knowing his character, knowing
That's
the
really
things
good.
that he says about you is so key.
Yeah, because ultimately he knows us better than we know ourselves.
Wow, yeah.
So that's the only way to really be ourselves is to know him. You know what I mean?
Wow.
So
That's really cool.
Gosh, that was so good.
so deep,
So good.
so deep, so quick.
Love it.
And I know, like I said, there's so much noise always happening around us. Another thing I know is that you're kind of like really into like the entertainment world in a way. Am I right?
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
Culture, just
like
fair.
culture in general.
Sure.
Here, I'm just gonna list a couple shows that you love, if that's okay.
Okay.
Is that
This could
okay?
be- yeah.
So like one that we watched together, The Bachelor,
Sure.
Bachelorette.
Yeah.
Yes, we're guys. We watched The
come on.
Bachelor. We watched The Bachelorette.
Even Curtis will never admit it, but
Curtis,
yeah.
Curtis is the
When they
biggest
say,
fan.
No, when they say we, they mean these things. I mean 1, 2.
We used to have literally watch parties, and guys would be the ones that would show up and put it together.
there
Yes.
were girls.
There were girls, but let's be honest, there was probably 6 to 8 guys at a time. And
Why are we
No,
talking?
no
Why are we
numbers.
admitting
anyway, it's okay.
Great. Be yourself,
because
Curtis.
we're ourselves.
That's right. Come on.
We are ourselves. Another one you like, which I've never really watched. I know you've watched it a couple times. Is Keeping Up with the Kardashians.
Yeah,
because
that's really more. That's honestly, that's more Caden's.
What?
What?
No.
Yes,
no,
yes,
no,
yes, yes,
no,
yes, yes.
no.
Okay.
Wait,
only-
which one of us recorded the series on our
my
TV?
gosh.
Let's be
Here it is.
honest.
Here it
No,
is, boys.
let's be
This is-
honest.
this is
Caden.
Caleb.
I
This
was
Caleb.
I was thinking of you, and I recorded it because I know you like to watch.
Wow, that's just a
No,
friend.
I'm
right
a
there.
great roommate.
Literally,
Let's be clearly honest
How many
here.
conversations like this have we been
Oh
a
my
part
gosh.
of?
No, I tell them they fight like a married couple.
Yeah.
Literally,
Okay, but-
okay, I recorded it for you.
Dude, and what's so funny is that Caden sometimes says like he feels like it's a marriage because he gets off work, he's like, I gotta go see Caleb, gotta
can't
have
leave
dinner
him
with
alone.
Caleb. I'm like,
But
this is so
that's so much
good.
because of our personality
Absolutely.
types too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, you might not watch that. Obviously, you love like basketball. You keep up with like
Oh,
entertainment. We've played Battle of the Sexes a lot, and you are always a huge part when it comes to those entertainment questions. So we're gonna play a little
Okay.
game, a little segment today called "What's Trending,"
All right,
and we're
let's
gonna
do it.
talk about 4 things. One that we've already brought up, which we can start with, is The Lion King.
Okay.
The Lion King. There's some huge actors, actresses in this. I believe Childish Gambino, Donald Glover is Simba.
Most importantly,
Beyonce, 100%.
Oh, yes.
I've heard some mixed reviews, and that's kind of what I want to talk about. Have you seen it yet?
I've not.
Okay, so there's a lot
none of us have
of
seen it.
mixed reviews, and I can't. We need to go after this. We need to go watch it because I've seen one review and it was like Beyonce sings too much, and like for you, you're like.
Is that even
How
possible?
Exactly.
Come on.
Exactly. And I love Donald Glover. People are comparing it to like, like their movies about like Planet Earth and stuff like that. But they just like talk. And there's like a scene that everybody is so upset is not in it. It's when Rafiki hits Simba on the head, and it's not in this movie. And people are like freaking out about it. So like, what's your take on people freaking out? Do you think they're going a little too far, or can you not really like talk about it so you see
Oh
it?
no,
or
like
what?
I mean, listen, here's the deal. Like I think people go into these movies thinking they're going to be like just over the top spectacular.
Right.
Like let's be honest, they're just doing a remake of The Lion
Right.
King, right?
Yeah.
And it's not going to be exactly the same thing cuz I think it's very rare for people to remake a movie and it's better than the original.
Yeah.
That's
Very
just
rare.
my personal opinion. But
Yeah.
I think listen, if you go in thinking it's The Lion King, how many years has it been since that like
1525.
Well,
it's
it was
1994.
94,
25 years.
Yeah, so it's been a long time, right? So we all watched it as kids.
Yeah.
Love The Lion King, but I think more than anything, like you just go in as it's like a sentimental like kick back to your
Absolutely.
childhood,
Yeah,
right?
For sure.
And I think a lot of times too, I'm not this way. A lot of people go in just expecting a whole like, just I'm not saying set the bar low, but like just go in and enjoy it, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of people just go in to like try to find things and critique. Like
I think
when
that's
I'm
why I
watching
liked
a-
Aladdin so
Sure,
much.
yeah.
Just
Like,
let it take you back.
But when I watch a movie, like I just want to enjoy it. Like
Yeah.
So that's it.
Just some advice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So another thing that's kind of big right now came out yesterday apparently YouTube star Logan Paul is going broke.
Wow.
And apparently, like,
Really?
I thought this guy like had money. Like,
Me too.
It appears.
yeah, obviously. And I think what happened is that his finances that he's having to pay for monthly or yearly are now catching up to how much he's making in a
So
year.
he's going
like even
So
basically.
his budget, you're saying?
budget, not necessarily that he doesn't have money, but it's going to expenses.
Well, I think they call that like you can get. It's called upside down.
yeah, he's
in a
close.
way. Like if
Apparently.
you're whatever.
Yeah,
it
his
is.
net worth.
Which is crazy because just a few vlogs ago, apparently he had a party that cost like $60,000 or $70,000 for one party.
That's wild.
Cow.
One party, $60,000, $70,000
Some people make that in a year.
exactly, which is
Some people
absolute.
don't make that in a year.
Exactly. So I thought I'd just bring that up. That's just kind of interesting to me
insane.
because like
I had no
I've
idea.
paid attention to his podcasts and stuff like that. It seems like he's doing incredible.
He's known as like just a huge influencer.
Absolutely. And what's great, I don't know if you saw this, but he's had this pet bird, okay? Since
Maverick.
before, yeah, his name's Maverick, before he ever started Vine, I
brand.
believe. Yeah, even the brand. So it was actually like his first like pet. It's like his, well, he recently got 2 new dogs, and one is a Tiberian Mastiff.
Yes, huge.
Huge dog. It's like 6 months old, probably like 150 pounds, something crazy. This dog ate his bird just a few days ago. Can you believe that?
I feel like it's a sign.
Dude.
Times are
Well, I mean,
catching
listen,
up, boys.
like
And just a couple months ago, his dog got eaten by a coyote.
Yeah.
well,
And this
I
is all
think
within a few months
I think
of each
whenever
other.
he got Broly, he should have just stopped after that. Because
Yeah.
let's be honest, that dog is awesome.
Yeah,
Broly.
Broly's cute, and
Yeah.
Ginger's cute, but she
Well,
is
not really.
so. Anyway,
Yeah.
okay, this is one that I'm really upset about,
Okay.
and I think you will be too because you are a huge fan of the best show ever, The Office.
Yes.
And recently, it was announced on Netflix that The Office will be taken off in January of 2021, along with so many other incredible shows. And it's basically because networks are starting to create their own streaming platforms.
Like
And
a-
s-
oh.
yeah,
Like
so
the-
like
like
NBC.
NBC,
Yeah,
sure.
so The Office will now be able to be streamed on NBC. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, like, listen, it's unfortunate, but if you have television, it's on all the time
Yeah,
anyway,
for sure.
right? So, I mean, you can't watch it consecutively, but you don't really have to because
We-
every
we got
episode
that
is
at-
awesome
we got that to
regardless of where you're
record.
at. Yeah.
We got that on DVR.
And it might be nice to kind of not have it because, like, I spend time watching that, Like, what
Sure.
can I do with that
Sure,
time?
sure.
Jared, let me ask you something. How many
Yes.
times have you watched it?
I am
On
I s-
Netflix.
On Netflix all the way through.
Yes.
So like intentionally like paying attention to every episode, like three complete times.
That's impressive. I'm
yeah,
impressed by
and
that.
I only started watching it in I think 20. I don't even know why I'm saying this. It makes me seem ridiculous. What?
Sorry,
keep-
sorry, bro.
And so it makes me seem ridiculous, but after that it was like I think I watched it probably like 5 other times, just like playing in the background, like while I'm going to bed or like whatever.
Yeah, so like in
since 2015.
So in all honesty, I had
crazy.
never seen the last episode until like a couple weeks ago.
Too
Because it
emotional.
was on TV. It is very emotional.
Dude, I cried
yeah.
so hard in the last 2 episodes.
Oh my gosh.
I cried hard, like for real. Like I've never cried on a movie, never cried a TV show at this point. And there's a part, I'm not gonna spoil it. Hopefully everybody's seen The Office, but I mean it's been out for a while. But there's a scene where Jim makes this like video for Pam to just show her how much he cares about her. And that moment, I freaking lost it. Don't know why, but anyway. So
Well, I mean, listen, if you're not aspiring to be Jim and Pam,
oh my gosh,
what
I
are-
named my
like, what are
dog
we
after
even
Jim.
doing? Yeah, come
I
on.
named my dog after
Come on.
Jim because I love the show so
Goals.
much.
Hashtag
But
Yeah.
I saw an interesting take on this because people are saying basically like it's like turning into like people have strayed away from cable for Netflix and Hulu, and now it's like you're gonna be having to pay for all these other networks, and it's like turning into like cable again, like the same amount you'd be paying and all kind of stuff. So I thought it was interesting that they're doing that.
for sure.
The last one's kind of cool because he's joining your boy on the Jordan brand. Zion Williamson signed a 7-year deal for $75 million. He's 19 years old.
Holy
That is
Not-
wild. to me.
$75 million. I believe that's insane. Like
That's just with Jordan?
just Jordan. That's not his contract with the Pelicans. So
$75 million.
75 million.
Which would be
7 years.
more than his. Well, is that more than his contract?
Yeah.
It's longer than his contract, I believe. I think
It's
rookie
5
contracts
years.
are. Yeah.
Well, his contract with Jordan was 5 years.
It was 5.
Yeah.
I thought
Okay.
it was 7.
I read that today. Or am I wrong?
It's 75 million. That's
Either-
what I
either
wrote
way,
down. That's
it's
insane.
75,
That's insane. But I'm glad he's going to Jordan. We've talked about this a little bit. How when you join Jordan, you also join Nike in a way. So it's super cool that
Sure.
he's joining your boy Westbrook. Don't mean to bring his name up again. I'm so sorry.
Hey, listen, what better place to go than the Jordan brand?
Absolutely. So, yeah. So that's what's trending.
What's trending?
What's trending? Yeah.
That is it. So, Caleb, just to kind of ask you another question, because we're just loving having you on here and just gaining all this knowledge, it's just great.
Yeah.
But like, in like kind of like the pursuit of finding significance that we all kind of go through in life, like sometimes it's really easy to try to find that in like the wrong things, get sucked into the wrong crowd, and be trying to like please others maybe, but like, ultimately we know we find our significance, through, like Christ dying for us, and then like, just accepting that, and then like becoming ourselves, really helps us to kind of tune everything out. So like, can you like give us some maybe like action steps for the listeners of like some ways you can make it easy to be yourself, to kind of tune out all those distractions that like get you going down that wrong path?
Yeah, so I'd say like definitely the first thing is surround yourself with people who, one, accept you for who you are, and want to like help build and strengthen your relationship with Christ. I think that's huge. I think one of the things for me was my parents. My parents were huge and instrumental in who I am today, because they always told me I don't have to do anything for like the glory of anybody but Christ.
Wow.
And that includes just the way you act, the way you talk. Everything you do should always point towards Christ. So my parents were very instrumental in just reminding me of that daily. And although I faltered at times, it was always like just brought back to that. Like, and my dad has always said, like, you live your life in a way that, if other people say bad things about you, no one will believe it, because they see the way you live your life. And so,
it's really good.
man, I try really hard to do those things and just walk every day. But it's hard sometimes, I think, when you kind of let what the world says, go to your head. But I think one thing I always tell myself is I just have to be myself, regardless of what people think, regardless of what people say. And no, it's not always easy. But again, like, I surround myself with people like you guys, and you all accept me every day for who I am.
Absolutely.
We can be hanging out and it's 10 o'clock and I'm out, and you don't judge me one bit for going straight to bed.
We judge you.
Yeah.
We judge you.
And if you do, like, it's totally cool, because I just don't care.
Yeah.
Right?
Literally,
it's not going to stop me.
literally, Caleb is so disciplined that it does not matter. We could have
We could be.
I have doubted that.
name someone.
Well, you said Russell Westbrook.
Other than Westbrook, he'd stay up for Westbrook.
I would probably stay up if Westbrook was here.
Like if he was here.
Outside of Westbrook, I don't know if there is any other person in this entire world that if they were sitting on the couch in our living room, Caleb would not give in, and he would just be like, "It's bedtime."
I mean, like, my quote is that literally he could be sitting in the middle of two beautiful women on a couch, and he'd just be, "All right, 10 o'clock, time to go, girls."
What if one of those girls is like your future wife?
Well,
she needs to know.
Meet her
She
at
needs to know.
6 p.m.
listen, if she don't like me past 10 o'clock, then I don't know what we're doing.
Yeah, for sure.
Listen, it's just, it's who I am.
What I thought was key was you talked about surrounding yourselves with people and like positive influences, and I mean that's a whole nother topic that we could probably do a whole nother podcast on, is just surrounding yourself with good people. But I think that can really speak to a lot of people. I mean, Curtis touched on getting sucked into the wrong crowd, and I know it can be hard. I know that's sometimes like an easy thing to do, is just you're in this world going through each and every day trying to figure out, your path, trying to figure out your purpose and who you're called to be and what you want in your life. And it's sometimes easy to take the wrong, to get off the path a little bit. But I think, just putting yourselves in a position to have those positive influences around you to keep pulling you back in, reining you back in.
Well, and I'll say too, like, I think a lot of times we talk about like it's really easy to follow the world or get involved in like wrong choices or those types of things, but sometimes it's even things that aren't necessarily bad. I mean, like your career, wanting to be successful in whatever, and that's one of the things I was talking about with like the girl that was going to share her testimony. She was just talking through about how she became just so obsessed, I guess, with winning, right? And that just kind of like took control of her identity. And I have to watch myself in that too, because it is easy as a coach. Like, I want to win, I want to be successful, but whenever I come to a place where that is above like my relationship with Christ, and then my relationship with other people, I think that's when it becomes a problem for me. And so I kind of have to take a step back and just evaluate, like, am I letting that take the place of Christ, or, you know, loving other people? So
It's really
it's not always bad things, right? Because like I love every aspect of my job, and in no way is that bad. It's just making sure that you don't put that above something else.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you like one more question on like about as far as like the friends, like surrounding yourself with like good people and everything. And like I think that's just so big in life. But like I've noticed in my life sometimes, and like I think a lot of people probably have noticed this too, you surround yourself with good people and then you find yourself like relying on them to like, you know, keep you accountable or stuff, and then they maybe like transition out of your life for some reason, you move or something, and there's a time where you don't necessarily have people to surround yourself to. Can you talk about possibly like ways to like kind of protect from that, like kind of like some checks you can make to make sure like you're doing, like, you know, you're making sure you're not relying too heavily on others? Because while it is important, it's still kind of the same thing. Ultimately, we're responsible, you know, for our own self.
Sure. Yeah, that's good. I think it's a tough question for me, because I think because of my personality type, I'm pretty, like, I am relationship driven. And so if it's hard for me, like, I do find a lot of value in relationships, and I think, like, definitely good, like, it, you know, builds you, push you towards Christ, all those things. But even just like personally, like, I like being around people until 10 o'clock, you know. But I do, and I do struggle with that too, because I think when, like, for me, like, when a relationship ends, like, you know, whatever type or form that relationship is, friendship, whatever, I do struggle a lot because I'm so used to having that in my life. But I think ultimately it comes back to, like, just prayer. Like, if that is something you struggle with, like, asking God, you know, help me work through this, like, on my own without this person in my life, or just whatever it is. You know, again, I kind of go back to, like, my parents. Like, that's one thing I've blessed to have two godly parents, and I always seek their advice on, you know, what do I do in this situation, or help me here, because I don't know, you know, I don't know what I'm doing. And so, again, I know that's just another person I'm probably relying on, and I don't know if a roundabout way that answered your question, but I think it's tough, and I don't know the right answer.
No, that's good. You know, that's good. I just know, you know, it's very easy when you get those good influences to like let your, like, you know, get like kind of like, you know, dull in some areas of your life, you know, because you just like are so used to what they bring to like the relationship and like them pushing you and everything. So I just thought that'd be a good idea to like,
I think it's hard, but I guess I would say too, like, it's one day at a time, right? So like when you're used to that and all of a sudden it's cut off, it's just one day at a time, like, just walking through it and learning to kind of just reevaluate where your life is at and how you need to respond.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think Brandon kind of hit that on the head. Like, last time we asked him, like, because we were talking about chasing dreams, and a little bit of this kind of, like, you know, coincide with one another, but like he was saying at a point where you're like stuck or whatever, you just have to pivot. It's just a pivot. It's not like, oh, I'm stuck, I can't get anywhere. It's like, no, you just got to pivot. You just got to move to where you see or know what that next thing is. And so, like, say someone moves away or whatever, it's like, okay, now I got to pivot to, you know, maybe this was like God saying, like, I was relying way too much on this person, or I need to rely more on God. It's just a pivot. It's just a mindset. Slight adjustment that can make the biggest difference. So that's so good.
For sure.
Yeah. So I would like to go around and each one of us maybe give our biggest takeaway from this episode, because there's so much good content and what we've been talking about, and so much that has just inspired, I know, personally for me. And so let's start with Jarrett.
Gosh, no, I'm just kidding. I think there's a couple things that I really feel like hit home with me. One is the friends, surrounding yourself with the right people, because moving out here just a few years ago, small town, huge culture shock for me. But what changed, like, my perspective, what was the pivot for me in those moments, was like the friend group that I was surrounding myself with. Not that they necessarily like told me who I was, but they were there to, like Curtis said, like help me be accountable with all these things that, which I had that in Oklahoma City, but when I moved out here, I didn't. So it was like the pivot of moving from like, man, this is really hard, to, oh my gosh, the people out here are absolutely incredible. And so that was a big pivot for me. So the friendships, and then also just like you guys don't think that Russell looks better in a Rockets jersey when it's obvious. So those are the two biggest things that I took away.
Not gonna go into that.
Don't get me started.
Yeah, that was the most I took out, but it was really, really, really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about you?
I would say for me, just going into just relying on, we talked about just focusing more on who God says you are than the world, because there are so many other voices that, and distractions almost that are like trying to get us off path and trying to get us down or trying to, this or that, and just remembering who you are and who you're called to be, and just finding your worth in the things that God says about you, I think is huge. It really is. And I know that that's something a lot of people struggle with.
Absolutely.
For me, I'm just surprised Caden DVRs the Kardashians and tries to blame it on Caleb.
Thank you, Kurt.
This whole time he's like, "Oh yeah, Caleb just loves keeping the Kardashians. He loves Chloe."
I do.
Is that the one though?
Yes.
Okay.
She's my favorite.
Sorry, I get them all mixed up. I can't.
Like, she'd be fun to hang out with. She's funny.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool. No, but like as far as like what the content Caleb brought to us, like the wisdom he shared, like something I really like grabbed a hold of, and like I've heard it said like so many times, but just like kind of the like phase of life I'm in right now, it really kind of hit home was when you were talking about when you were like discussing with your athlete, the runner, about her testimony, and you were talking about how like wins don't define you. And, for you as a coach, so many coaches, they don't get to put up stats as far as like going out there, it's literally wins or losses. There's no like, margin of victory. People don't really care about that. It's literally all you got is a win or a loss. And so like for like the realization for you of that, to me, just really hit home because, I just realized myself in business, I try to focus on, making money. And just to like not let that define me, to be able to not have that pride that tells you no, like you got to be the best, and I think, oh, that's just competitiveness. And it's like, no, that's pride. Because like I'm saying, I'm not like the way God made me isn't good enough. I have to be like this. And so like I just kind of like felt like when you were talking about that, that just like hit me. I was like, man, like there's too much pride in my life. There's too much of me trying to say, okay, success is this. And like, I just loved how you're like, no, like you can't measure it by that. So that was my biggest takeaway for sure.
Yeah.
Well, and I'll be honest, like on that, when I was, so like this girl, she is literally, she's one of the best runners to ever come through our school. And I mean, she just finished her sophomore year. She's won 2 cross country titles. You can run 4 events in track every time at state gold. So all she knows is gold. And so like, when I sat there and listened to her give her testimony, and she was talking to our middle school students, and she was just getting emotional, and she just said, like, if I never win again, it's okay, because that is nothing compared to Christ.
Wow.
And for me, like I'm sitting there, 1 as her coach, 2 like I'm not twice her age, but like 10, 12 years older than her, and I'm just sitting there thinking like, I wish that I would have had that heart when I was a sophomore in high school.
Sure.
And it's hard because she finished, she walked out, she was crying, she was upset because she didn't feel like she went through it as smoothly as possible. And I just sat down with her and I was like, first off, this is really weird for me to say because I am your coach, but like, thank you. Wow. Thank you for being willing to give that up. And I'm like, please know it's hard. Like tears rolling down my face. I get emotional sometimes and it's fine. But like, it is hard for me to say like, I don't care if you ever win again. Because you're 100% right. Like in comparison to what Christ has, like it is nothing. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, like that's still what we're shooting for, right? But here's what I told her too: is I just said like, I think sometimes like we let kind of that success or whatever take the place of Christ, and He has a way of kind of like getting our attention. Yeah. But at the same time, like that doesn't always mean He takes that away from us, right? And so sometimes He just wants us to use it to glorify Him. And so we just kind of like talk through some of those things, like how can you use running and specifically winning to glorify Christ, because like interviews after, like, what are you doing to let people know that it's not you, but Christ in you, right. And what an easy way when you're going to be on an interview that we know is going to be all over social media. Right. And so for me, like, even it's something I worked on my whole life, like just in the last week, sitting down with her and like talking through some of those things. It's just refreshing to be reminded, even as an adult, like man, it's not about what I do, but it's all about Christ in me.
That's so good.
You know, I just love like that conversation you had with her, because so many times, you know, you hear someone talk about, oh, you can't find success in winning, and then if you're an athlete, you feel guilty for that striving for wins. But like what you talking about is like, you know, that verse, I can't remember exactly where it is. I think it's in Colossians, but it's like, whatever you do it for Christ, not for men. And that, I think that means like, look, if you're good at this, use it for God. Like win. Like if you can win, go out there and try your hardest. Like that's just being a good steward of your gifts. And like, just like sometimes for me, I hear those verses, they go right over my head, but when I can get them right, it's just a great moment for me. So
yeah, that's so good.
Well, I think that's a great way to just wrap this whole podcast up. This is podcast number 2 under our belt.
So many
good.
more to come.
Feels so good.
So many more.
We got so much more in store. Kaleb, thank you again.
Thank you.
Come on.
Yeah, let's give it up.
God, you're so good.
For those of you listening, one more word of encouragement. Just be you, as cliche as that may sound.
That's really good, yeah.
Just be you and remember just who God says that you are and find your identity, your worth in that. And so don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow us on every platform. We've got it all by now.
Yes.
And so we're going to end as we always do. And remember, figure out who you're called to be, what you're called to do, and have fun doing it. This is Kaleb, Curtis, me, Caden, and Jarrett signing off on Boost Podcast. Peace.